barrier every single day, every weekend, 24/7. It does not matter.
Tell them what breaking the black barrier mean, man. What
Come
they
on,
look
man.
like.
What is
man?
black, man?
What is black?
Copper Color Productions, man.
Huh?
The Copper Color King, King Cash, Morals, and Money, man. Let's get it.
Black King, stand up for understand what black is. It's the essence, it's the culture. We've been on this earth, you heard? The Bronx was called for Apache. Huh? The Bronx was called for Apache, man. Oh, last breed, bro. We bringing it back, last breed.
Really forever flying in this bitch, man. For the ancestors, baby. For all the ancestors out there, baby. All right, y'all. What up? What up? What up? What up, man? What up? It's the Copper Color King, man. We in this bad boy with some good content. I'm gonna bring some fire to y'all today, man. And I just want to thank the brother Minister Information, man, for giving us this blessing and allowing us to put out this heat on this platform. You know, the brother, he gets real factual. You know, I say factual because a lot of the information he be pulling out and putting on his channel, it be straight facts. Y'all, I rock with that Lincoln video that the bro put out. I ain't even gonna front. And it's like on TikTok, we be piggybacking off of each other. Like I make a post and I see the bro make a post, and for some way, shape, or form, we find a way to make the information come full circle. Now, for those who haven't tuned in to one of my live streams on the brother's platform, man, I am the Copper Color King. The purpose of this channel right here, the purpose of my platform is to spread awareness to my indigenous brothers and sisters, to let y'all know. Yeah, I mean, we come from the true land of America. We come from this land. This is our stomping grounds. We are from America. All that black people come from Africa stuff, man, we just got to ditch that. Take that, crumble it into a bowl, and throw that shit in the garbage, bro. Because let me tell y'all, one thing for sure, two things for certain. I did the research, even in my own ancestral lineage. I ain't got no goddamn African ancestors, man. No matter what they say, no matter what people, no matter what ancestry DNA test might say. I did the research. Yeah. I did the research. I pulled out the facts. I seen the family members. I seen the transcripts, right? For those who out there who be applying to college, right? You can't go to college without the transcript, you know, high school diploma, the paper trail, the paperwork. The paperwork, man. More or less, though, man, like I said, that was my formal introduction for those who haven't been on this platform from. Yeah, can't never trust them. Can't never trust them. Can't never trust them. I tell my moms and pops that all the time. I'm like, listen, y'all ain't have to go get no DNA test. I did the DNA test. I am the DNA test. I am the DNA test. You don't need it. Right? You don't need it. Information is out there. Just to go on Google is free. But they charging y'all basically all that, whatever the price is to do the DNA test. I don't know. I only paid the $20 for Ancestry just so I can see the records. Right? But yeah, man, Copper Colored King, that's what this is about. That's what I'm all about. I spread awareness on this stuff because it's important that we know, you know what, the greatest lie ever told was that we was a bunch of black people brought over here on slave ships from Africa. And that we were given numbers instead of names, right? Numbers instead of names, like inmates, right? Just like we was inmates or patients. Patient 226, inmate 45633, BBC, cell block 1, 823. State your position. Claim your name, claim your gang, claim your role. Right? That shit was all a mind fuck. The psychoneurosis, like the bro be saying. It's the psychoneurosis. They did that, right? So that we could have that mindset now. Who wants to think like a slave? I know I don't. So I'll be damned before you tell me that I was a number before my own damn surname. You know, and it's funny too, speaking of surnames, before I even get into this content, right? Most of our surnames are European. Most of us, right? Which proves that there's some European ancestry there. Go over to Africa and ask them people them surnames, right? Find out those surnames. And then come back to America and see if you find any of your ancestors or relatives with those surnames. Mabuntu, Tumbuktu, Kumbunta. I ain't even trying to disrespect. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to spit facts for y'all. But let me get right into it, man. The greatest lie ever told, bro. I mean, it's crazy because it's like, why even give us a history class, right? If you was just going to lie to us in the first place, you know, might as well never even called it history. Hence the word history, right? You put it right in front of our face and we just fell for it. But why even tell us all of this, right? When we can't even go to Africa and fill in that missing link. We can't even go and check a cousin or auntie or uncle over there in Africa and fill in the missing link. Right? And then you got, it's because of people like this brother right here in the bottom right. Walter Pleckler and his bitch ass. Yeah. That man was responsible for hijacking us, y'all. See, they look like this now. They look like what you see right here now. But a long time ago, they looked like this. Right? On the right there on the right. On the left, you have the Africans with numbers 5 and 50 and whatever they felt like they could fit on these old raggedy ass boats. They thought they could fit that many people. That's what, you know, that's why storytelling is one hell of a thing, right? Because you could put anything on paper and make it sound good. Right? You could put anything on paper and make it sound good. So if they put on paper that they put 6,000 slaves on one boat, of course they're going to come up with these illustrations and whatever the case may be to make it sound good. Yeah. You can make it sound good, right? But my thing is, right, how do you go from telling us this here on the left to us evolving to look like this here on the right? We all Negroid, right? But in that same token, African people have one phenotype, right? They look a certain way. And the American Aboriginals look a certain way. However, the one thing that we share in common is the skin complexion. But I just don't understand, right? Like, this is my thing with it. I be telling myself all the time, like, the whole purpose of this is to fill in the gap. I need to fill in the gap, but I could just never understand how we go from here on the left to here on the right, right? And then they remove this right half right here, right? They remove it. And we fast forward all the way to an age where they call us African Americans and all that, and whatever the case may be, connecting us back to this, moving us further away from this. It's a damn shame. Let me tell y'all, it's a damn shame. Right? But like I said, let's move forward, right? The greatest lie ever told. What I got for y'all? Let's check it out. So what is this? This here is from the United States Census Bureau. This is factual documentation. Now, why do I have this up? I want those who are watching this live right now, right, to gain a understanding on exactly what type of stuff we was dealing with when they created the first American census. And this is why classifications is like, it's dangerous, right? Because they play with these classifications, and with time, they hide our history, and they call it a myth, a mystery, my story. They hide it within these classifications. Now, one thing I always point out for myself, just to give myself a bigger understanding, is this 1790 time stamp right here. Right? Like the brother minister always say, time stamps are important. So this is why I pulled this up. I got some other articles that I'm gonna correlate with this stuff right here. Time stamps are important though. Let's check it out. So in 1790, and I saw the census for myself. I'm gonna pull it up too. I saw it for myself. In 1790, you had 3 classifications, right? Matter of fact, 4, because you had 2 classifications in this free white females and males column, right? You got slaves, free white males and females, and all other free persons, right? This told me one thing, right? Because before there was ever a black classification, people were being classed based off of their value. How much of a commodity are you to a growing economy? Right? One thing I learned about history and slavery and classification is that one way for you to earn your rights as a citizen is to be someone who can be tithable, aka taxable. We're gonna drop that in the chat. The term tithable. Never believed it. Yeah, we not the minority, love. We not the minority, love. We are the majority. We are the majority. Drop the word in the chat. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, man. Copper Color King. Tithable, right? That was the only way you were able to be considered a free person of color, or just a free person in general. Because remember, we had poor whites at that time too, who were indentured servants and slaves. But back to the classification. So, in the free white males and females column, you had those who were under 18 and those who were over 18. And then in the all other free persons and slaves column, you had everybody who was considered either an indentured servant or a slave. Now, if we look at that from a 2024 perspective, the slave column, if they already have a free white males and females, the slave column would obviously represent one group of people, right? And that would be black people. But the question is, what black people? Is these aboriginals or are these Africans? Stay on standby, y'all, right? Let's check it out, though. So the slaves column says 1790, 1800, and 1810, the racial categorization in the first decennial census of 1790 was a reflection of Article 1, Section 2 of the newly ratified U.S. Constitution. Let's look that up. What is Article 1? And for you guys, who are up on like what's in the Constitution, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm not up on it like that, right? But for those who are up on it, maybe you could drop a comment, let me know what it says, right? I'm trying to find a connection for that. But yeah, anyway, so they saying that slave is one of the first racial classifications, right? Slave, a racial classification, being a slave, right? And then in all other free persons we have, oh yeah, so they're basically saying they're all racial classifications, right? All right, whatever the case may be. So the overall objective on where I'm going is, just check this out, right? We have from 1790 to 1850, that's where we see the first, sorry, not 1850, yeah, 1850, the first black classification, the first, right? And it was, look, it says for the first time a category was used measuring a black blood quantum, right? And this was used for the term mulatto for free inhabitants and slave inhabitants. So that means in 1790, like I said, the term slave can only refer to black people. Now, the thing that we have to identify now is what black people were they talking about, right? But look at the gap before we even see the first introduction of black. This is why I say, what is black? How you gonna call me black if before 1790 I wasn't even being called black, right? There's no way in hell that we can even sit here and rock with that, because that sit here and it puts that assumption out there that we're automatically slaves. And that connects, and to connect that, they associate that with being African. Being a slave is always associated with being an African. And this is why I say it's a gap. We forget about this indigenous history. Check this out, right? So this is from an article I got. I'll try to download this. Or if anything, let me see if I could turn it here on Google. Oh, okay, I can't. I want to give y'all this article. I want to talk about it because this one is extremely interesting, right? It's extremely interesting. So just give me a second. Let me see if I can figure out how to rotate this and we go from there. Jesus Christ. Oh, why it came out like that? I don't like that. Let's try that again. I just need y'all to stay on standby because this one right here, this one gonna slap, right? This one gonna slap. I need y'all to understand. It's gonna make a lot of this make sense. Whatever. All right. So I figured it out, y'all. I'm back. Now let's get to this. Let me show y'all something real quick. All right, I got it. Right, so let's check this. I want to run through this little article real quick because it's going to make a lot of this stuff make sense on what I'm trying to tell y'all, right? These classifications, how over time they changed, and how you have many groups of people, or you have two groups of people who could be classified under this black status. You have Africans, Swarthy Europeans and indigenous Aboriginal peoples, right? It's not always an African person that you can consider to be black. That right there is straight up hijack. And we can't continue to believe in that no more, like I said. Now, as I read, I need y'all to follow. Pay attention because it's going to put out some fire, right? So the article is titled, "The Classification of Native Americans as Mulattoes in Anglo-North America," right? And what does it say, right? So, contemporary scholarly and popular literature in the United States has largely ignored the significance of widespread Native American ancestry among Afro-Americans and also of African ancestry among many Native groups. Dodge that. The consequence of this neglect are far-reaching, and this is especially true in relation to studies of the evolution of music, folk tales, social organization, and other aspects of culture. In a similar manner, the existence of a large group of red-black people, part American and part African, has been largely overlooked, and in fact, such people have been usually classified as black by both scholars and North American statutes. Right? Now, we got to dodge that part African part. Why I say dodge that is because they associate that African blood with the black European side, right? Negroes, they're Negroes. The term Negro, the term African just refers to a person who is dark skinned, who has black skin. The country Africa wasn't even called Africa a long time ago. That name is even fairly new if we really want to talk about it like that. Right? But like they just said, the history of these people has been they have been classified as black by both scholars and North American statutes. The classification, they gave us this classification and it removed us from the truth of who we truly are. You know, a lot of us have ancestors who have Huguenot ancestry or Melungeon DNA, you know, many different people, swarthy people from Europe mixing in with some of the folks who were here in America in the 1600s. Do your genealogy, and I'm pretty sure you're going to find something over there, North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, even in the Caribbean islands. It's literally like the same process everywhere you go on this side of the world. But they continue to tell us it was Africans. It was Africans. It was Africans. It's not entirely true. All right, so let's continue. Still further, the former existence of comparatively large numbers of Native American slaves has also been ignored generally, with great consequence for both early Native and Afro-American history. As early as the late 19th century, the 19th annual report of the Bureau of American Ethnology noted that a considerable proportion of the blood, I know this one by heart, of the Southern Negroes of the United States is unquestionably Indian. Unquestionably Indian. Unquestionably Indian. A considerable proportion of the blood of the Southern Negroes is unquestionably Indian. Right? Like I just said, we're going to throw Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Florida. We're going to throw all them states up in there, right? You got ancestry going back that from them areas, right? They just told you a considerable proportion of the blood of the Southern Negro is unquestionably Indian. They just let you know right there. So what is this whole we come from African slaves theory? What is that? How would you make that make sense in the eyes of a person who's doing the research like me, right? And when I see stuff like this, what am I supposed to think? Right? You niggas is liars, thieves. You'll rob my grandmother, and I gotta protect her. I gotta protect her ancestry. I gotta protect her pride, who she is and where she comes from. Right? Make sure y'all follow on Instagram, right? Subscribe on YouTube, TikTok, all that. Copper Color King, man. Because we goes for the gusto. We goes in, right? Check this part. It says, the end of Indian slavery came with the final absorption of the blood of the Indian by the more numerous Negro slave. But the blood of the Indian did not become extinct in the slave states, for it continued to flow in the veins of the Negro. Woo, we cooking with hot grease tonight, baby. We cooking with hot grease tonight, man. For those who tuned in, man, let's get these comments active, bro. Let's get these comments active, man. Let's get these comments active, man. We going off tonight. Yeah, we going crazy tonight. I ain't gonna lie. I am not gonna lie, man. Right? Let's continue. In an article published in the Journal of Negro History, Johnston remarked, where the Negro was brought into contact with the American Indian, the blood of the two races intermingled. The Indian has not disappeared from the land, but is now part of the Negro population of the United States. The Indian is the Negro. The later statement might offend in many Indians today, who still survive, of course, in great numbers as Native Americans. Also, they just identified for us right there. There's a huge difference. Like I said, this is the greatest lie they can ever tell us. Siberian Native Americans, Negro Indians. That's the greatest lie they could possibly tell us. Right? Ain't no way, bro. Ain't no way. That's all I'm gonna say. Ain't no way. Yeah, you gonna tell us that the Indians survived in the Negro? Those are classifications, my boy, right? Because when we go back to it, right? This is why I was telling y'all, pay attention. This is why I was telling y'all to pay attention. When you go back to it, what did I show y'all? What did I show y'all? These are all classifications, my boy. The reason why the Indians survived in the Negro is because over time, you separated us based off classification. See, when these dudes got involved, that's when everything changed, right? That's where you had to get a reclassification, right? Because these dudes got everything that these dudes worked hard for, right? They stole it all. Let's just put it that way. They stole it all. These dudes are not the same people as these dudes. These dudes are Chinese invaders. These dudes right here are autochthonous aborigines of the United States of America. No African. No African. No African. Right? That reclass. That's why the blood survived. Because they went from slaves to being free people of color, right? Slaves and people of color. Two classifications. Then from that to mulatto, right? Those who are quote unquote mixed or light skinned, to those who now are either black or Indian, right? What is that? 1870? This is after Emancipation Proclamation, after the 1860, right? This is now people are free. You ain't got no more slaves at this time. People are free. right? So you got to differentiate them because we still got to keep this population here subjugated. These darker people, these darker races, we have to keep them subjugated. See, this was all a race play. They hit us with a race play. Yeah. Always cooking. How can you get this PowerPoint? Honestly, bro, like I said, man, you gotta go and subscribe to the Morals and Money platform on YouTube. Right, that's where I drop most of my videos. I'm gonna drop it on. I'm gonna put it in the comments right now. If you type this in on YouTube, put it in the comments for y'all, and I'm gonna throw it on the banner. Let's put it on the banner. Right, if you type in Morals and Money platform for creators, and just go to Breaking the Black Barrier, right, you're gonna see it. It's gonna say Breaking the Black Barrier. You're gonna see it, right? You're gonna see that it's about 30-40 something videos up there where I'm just talking about it, right? I'm just talking, going crazy, right? Same thing that I'm doing right now. I got the PowerPoint up there. I dived more into it, provided more information on that. So yeah, you can go check it out. Make sure y'all subscribe. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel too. My direct channel is Copper Color King. That's the name. That's where you find a lot of my live streams. I break those videos up and I'll put them on that platform. Right. For those who can't sit and watch a whole hour and 2 hours worth of a video, that's what I got it there for, right? I got it there for. But we're gonna finish cooking though, like the bro just said. It's the classifications, bro. Right? They hit us with the okey doke. Right? What they did was once they freed the slaves, quote unquote, once Abe Lincoln, y'all best friend, y'all baby daddy. Abe Lincoln is y'all baby daddy. When he quote unquote freed the slaves, right? They had to do something to keep the darker races subjugated. Thanks to people like Walter Pleckler, right? Who was an extremely racist dude. Let's talk about him some. Even though me and the bro, we talk about him a lot already, but we just got to continue to talk about him because he's a piece of work, bro. I ain't even gonna front. Give me the chance today. I'll lace him up. I'll lace his grandson up. His grandson and me probably the same age. I'll punch that little nigga in his mouth. I ain't even gonna lie. Punch him right in his mouth. For everything your grandpa did. Everything you will pay for everything your grandfather did. You paying for it right now. I'm just behind the computer. You lucky. I'll give you this work in person. I promise you. Right now, this a-hole. Let's talk about this guy. Born in April. He's a joke. Obviously, the day after April Fools, he's a joke. He died in August, right, of 1947, right? 2 years after World War II ended or started, right? Somebody refresh my memory in the comments below. Where they took all of our black men, right, sent them off to war, and these niggas came home with PTSD and drug addicts and everything. Screwed our whole economy up, right? Fucked everything up for black people. Screwed everything up for us, right? These dudes, they lame as hell, bro. I ain't even gonna lie. Like, oh man, bro, I could go on for days about it, but he was an American physician and public health advocate who was the first registrar of Virginia's Bureau of Vital Statistics, serving from 1912 to 1946. He was a leader of the Anglo-Saxon Clubs of America, a white supremacist organization founded in Richmond, Virginia in 1922. He was a eugenicist and a proponent of scientific racism, right? That evolution theory, right? All of that. He was drafted and lobbied for the passage of Racial Integrity Act of 1924 by the Virginia legislature. It institutionalized the one-drop rule. Now, this one-drop rule is what segregated us. It separated us, right? It was the legal principle of racial classification that was prominent in the 20th century United States. It asserted that any person with even one ancestor of black ancestry is considered black, Negro, or colored in historic terms. It is an example of hypodescent, the automatic assignment of children of a mixed union between different socioeconomic or ethnic groups to the group with the lower status. Right? So basically what they saying is, and we're gonna put this in terms of skin color. If a light-skinned black shorty pull up with a dark-skinned black man, even if she is Indian and on her census documentation it shows that she comes from a tribe, if she got family with this nigga, then their children will be considered black. No more Indian. No more Indian. Nope. Right? Because he's the male and he has the lower status in terms of socioeconomic groups. Because we know at one point in time, right? Let's just face it. Even still now, they try to tell us black people are the people with the lowest status. We know it's not true, right? We know it's not true. However, they would continue to tell us this, I guess for however long they choose to tell us until we decide to make a difference, honestly. But yes, no more Indian. You can't be Indian no more. We placing you with the low class group, which would be whatever the male would be. Right? That's basically what they saying. And that one drop rule is what reclassified many of our ancestors. I'm telling y'all, it's true. I even got it in my ancestry, right? And let me get real factual for y'all real quick, right? I'll get real factual for y'all. Check this out. Because people be saying I be bull crapping, right? They like to say I be bull crapping. Right? So what I'm showing y'all right here, this is just my Swarthy European ancestry, right? That's what this is all about. My Swarthy European ancestry. Hold on, let me show you. Let me just try to get to it for y'all. People would be saying I be bull crapping. But me, I don't see it. I don't see how it's possible. Because I pull facts, bro. I have facts in my own family, right? Sipe Deloach, classified as a mulatto, right? Now, eventually, these people in my family would eventually end up becoming black, right? They would end up becoming reclassified as black. They're mulatto, though, because of this Huguenot, Deloach being a French Huguenot last name, and the Indian ancestry. Let me go deeper for y'all. Let's just see if I can find it from here, because I'm not signed in. What the hell?
How short is too short in a guy?
Get me the hell off of this, bro.
I'm from New York, and if you...
Hold on, y'all. I'm tweaking.
You are 6 feet tall.
I'm tweaking. This is why I need to be signed in. Make sure y'all go follow me on TikTok too. I put the post up. I tell y'all, I don't tell no lies, bro. I don't sit here and bull crap for people, right? This is Louisa Deloach, and this is Sipe Deloach. French Huguenot ancestry, Aboriginal Indian. Their bloodline was even reclassified to black, to the lower class, because of the colors of their skin. Right? If I could sign into Ancestry right now to actually show y'all the story, I would, but I'm gonna just bring it on another live stream. Stay in tune, right? And for those who want to get in tune with me, right? Subscribe to the platform, the Morals and Money platform. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Copper Color King. I go live every Saturday, every Friday, and I get into this stuff. I get real deep, and I start pulling out the facts. People, we got researchers right now, historians, I like to call them, that pull information from Google. That's fine and dandy. I could take it from my source directly. Like, this is my family, like my bloodline. My bloodline, right? And she was darker than me almost. Right? My pa John took her skin complexion. That's his grandmother. He took her skin complexion. Pa John was a dark-skinned man. They got reclassified to black. It was no more mulatto for them. And a lot of that had to do with stuff like that one drop rule and all of these reclassifications. Now, yes, they were mulatto. They were classified as mulatto, right? Due to them being of a mixed peoples, right? European, Aboriginal peoples, right? They were classified as mulatto, but that classification changed to black. I got another one for y'all, right? People like to say I be bull crapping, right? Some more. This is in South Carolina. Now, this is from the father's side, my pop's side. See, classified as colored. It was a colored man. Right? Now, what year is this? This one don't serve too much justice, right? Because I would have to give y'all the story behind this for y'all to understand that. And that is like a crazy one. I'm not even gonna lie. Here's another one. Right? These swarthy Aboriginal European mixed peoples, right? They tried to call them African, right? Whoever did this report on This Is My Family, they did this report on them. But they were even classified as mulatto or black, right? Or black, right? The same thing happened to this side of the family. The same thing. Look, you got mulatto, black. From mulatto to black. Right? Even at one point, even being white. That's crazy. They play with these classifications, though. They play with these classifications. This is what I'm trying to tell y'all. And that's why I like to go in it, because I can take it from my own family. As you can see, you got light skin, brown skin, right? My mom's take a little bit after shorty, right? But then you got some darker skinned people too, right? They play with these classifications. The point is, a lot of our history got lost in that one drop rule and Walter Pleckler's scientific racism and his involvement in being involved in the census and being able to change these classifications, whatever the case may be. They did this to us to distance us from the truth. Not only that, but so that they can control the narrative. They want control. They want to control their slave population. Because in all actuality, keep it a buck with y'all. I'm gonna keep it a buck. We all still slaves, right? If you got a job right now, if you work a job, you are a slave. I work a 9 to 5. I ain't gonna lie. I soon start streaming every day though, because I might quit. I'm not even gonna cap. I might quit. Because I just don't see the point anymore, right? We gonna get back into it, right? We gotta just take some time to talk, right? I gotta vent to y'all, so y'all can get to know me more, right? I work in a DV shelter, so I'm an advocate for those who go through domestic violence, right? Black people, brown people, white people. Man, I work with every different demographic you possibly could think of. Especially right now, being that we have this migrant crisis popping in New York City. I work with people that I can't even understand. I got to use a translator just to have a conversation with them. Yeah, bro. It's like that for a lot of us, bro. It's like that for a lot of us. But yeah, right. I work with a variety of mad different people. And I love what I do. But I just feel like the way the system is set up, I can't make a difference doing it that way. Working under the system. Because it's not set up for us. The system is not created for us to succeed. If they will go as far as to erase your ethnic identity, You got to ask yourself, how much farther are they willing to go? Diddy was just beating on his shorty, on Cassie, right? Behind closed doors. We all knew it was true. We all knew it was true already. The video just confirmed it for us. That shit is a representation of what we going through right now as black people. They've been beating our ass for generations, right? But this paper genocide and this reclassification, all of this stuff is just the proof that we needed to solidify what's been going on with colored people in the United States. It wasn't always about race, right? But they hate the color black so much that they had to make this shit about race. And since they gonna make it about race, every single time we get on this microphone and we get on this live stream, we gonna cook them every single time. We're gonna cook them every single time. They asked for this, right? And I want my ancestry back, right? I want to know what it feels like to hang out with those who once lingered and lived off the land, who didn't have to experience a lot of this stuff that we got to go through today. Domestic violence, shit, having to pay for water, food ain't free, nothing is off the land. Like, life is hard, and people will be scared to admit it. We dying to live and living to die. Like, for real though, it came to that point. And I'm saying this to say, like I said, we're gonna cook them every single time, and we're gonna use this as an outlet to reunite the people. We're gonna reunite the people under the copper-colored banner, because we all copper-colored peoples. We all we all one love, right? Not all skin is kin. But we got to stick to those who want to stick in, who want to stay with it, right? Who want to roll with the punches, right? And we got to unite under this banner. The indigenous community, man. Man, I just had to vent to y'all real quick. I know it may seem like I was talking some bullshit, but y'all got to get to know a brother, right? You can't rock. It would just seem like I'm just talking bull crap every time that I got on this microphone, if y'all didn't really get a chance to get to know me, right? But more or less though, I was just chatting. I ain't even gonna lie, but we're gonna finish this article, right? So where we left off, right? So they let us know that the Indian blood of the two races intermingle. The Indian has not disappeared from the land, but is now part of the Negro population of the United States. The latter statement might offend many Indians today, who still survive, of course, in great numbers as Native Americans. But nonetheless, the significance of Johnson's thesis as regards the extent of Native American African intermixture remains before us. Frank H. Russell, in his The Free Negro in Virginia, wrote in 1913 that one of the ways in which the free colored population grew was by the mixture of the Indians and the Negroes. Right? But this is crazy too, because it's like they writing this in 1913. The free population been grew years before that. The free colored population years before that, and that was already a mix of Sparta European Indian people, Aboriginal peoples. But they're gonna continue to separate them, right? But all this is just saying Negroes, people from Europe, and Indians, people from America, but people of color from these lands, right? The population grew because they started to mix, right? This is because a lot of the men in the Aboriginal community were being murdered, dying in war, getting sick. All of that stuff is true, leaving the women to be lonely and having like 5 or 6 children by themselves. And a lot of the free black color or free colored swarthy European men, they was getting with these shorties, right? Like how I just even showed y'all my family. That's how they picked up the surnames. Because even for Louisa DeLoach, right? Like I just showed y'all, Before her last name was Deloach, it was a Hachuma, something like that. I'm gonna show y'all one of these days. Hachuma, something like that. And he changed her last name to Deloach, right? Sipe. He changed her last name to Deloach. What it says, there's no doubt that a considerable element in the free colored population of the 19th century was of Indian extraction. There's no doubt. There's a considerable element in the free colored population was of Indian blood, because it's true. One can also cite other authorities whose work caused them to consider the intermixture of African and American racial stories. Helen T. Carroll, in her work on slavery in Virginia, noted that we have shown that the first slaves were Indians and not Negroes, right? So if they telling us that the first slaves was Indians, yeah, we cooking up. Big chief business, right? As a matter of fact, I just learned how to say that shit in Muskogee. Right? Hold on. Just give me a minute. I'm going to say it for y'all. Just give me a minute. I wrote it down. So, Rocco Kate. Know what? Even better? I'm going to pronounce it better for y'all, right? Just stand by with it, brother. This is how tight I am with it, right? Because I wrote it down just so I could learn how to understand it or how to pronounce it myself. Is Sako Jadi Nauchku. Sako Jadi Nauchku. Big chief business, right? I'm gonna spell it out in the comment section for y'all. Make sure y'all write this down too, man. We all learning, each one teach one. That's what we doing. That's how we do it. Right, I got my whole Muskogee journal. Hold up. Sorry, y'all spelled it wrong. Yo, what up? Yeah, I spent some time up there. We used to run down in Albany University. Right, I went to Syracuse. We used to run down on the joints in AU. I ain't gonna lie. Right, that's how you pronounce big chief business, right? In Choctaw. You're gonna throw it on the screen, right? That's big chief business in Choctaw, or in the Muskogee dialect. All the southeastern tribal people. Oh yeah, for sure. You know what to do, man. We used to run down. Man, that's a story for another time. College stories, man. Them college stories be slapping. But yeah, man, let's continue. So yeah. What they said, right, yeah, the first slaves were Indians. Right, the first slaves were Indians, not Negroes. So if the first slaves were Indians, right, that means, right, when we look at it from this perspective, give me a minute, sorry y'all, that means in 1790 these slaves is technically what, right? They're gonna say they're Africans, but they just told us the first slaves is Indians. So that means this population in 1790 is majority Indian. Majority. And some sort the European, because the Europeans were the free persons, the indentured servants. Those who weren't black, right? Or real dark, even though you had real dark Aboriginal peoples here. Right, real dark Aboriginal peoples here. They said the first slaves was Indians. Yeah, we gonna kill it. Nah. You know what? I'm gonna just throw it out there. I ain't even gonna front. This is why, and this ain't to take a jab at him, right? But we used to have the snow bunnies running wild in college. I can't ever be mad. Call me a NIGGA all you want. I had your snow bunnies going crazy in college. So it's all right. I'll take it. Yeah, man, we on M.O.I platform, man. It's the Copper Color King, man. Me and this bad boy. But yeah, man, got sidetracked again, man. I'm sorry, y'all. We're gonna go back to it. We gotta finish this because there's something else I want to show y'all before I end this live, right? Right. The first slaves were Indians and not Negroes, and that the enslavement of Americans continued for many, many, many years. In 1903, a historian of New Jersey noted that the unions between Indians and Negroes were so commonly frequent indeed as to have left permanent impress upon many families of Negroes of the present day. Let me tell y'all something, right? Biblically, right? If these Negroes were Africans, right? Biblically, they say Japhet is the progenitor of all of the lighter skin, fair skin races, right? Which would probably be Caucasian people. This is just my understanding. Ham is the father of all the darker races. And Shem would be the father of Negroes. Brown skin, light skin, people with color, melanated people, Shemitic. The father of the Negroes. So these Negroes were basically, let me show y'all these people. And I got it here too. This is why I keep a pole on me, man. I keep a pole on me. I always keep a clip on me because it's essential to put this information out. Just give me a second real quick, right, y'all? I'm gonna show y'all who these Negroes was. These Negroes were these darker skinned Europeans. This is from the book European Crests and Seals and Coats of Arms. That's who these Negroes were. Right? Like I told y'all, Deloach is a French Huguenot surname. Well, yep. These black people from Europe. Right? These black people from Europe. That's who these Negroes were. Right? When you go into it. This is the book, y'all. For those who want to go and get it, it's free. If you go over to my channel, you get the link, right? Become a member, you get the link, whatever. But you're going to have to, if you want to get it for free without doing all that, if you don't want to become part of the team, the community, you could go and Google it. You're going to have to dig, but you could Google it and find it. That's what I had to do. But yeah, you see these darker skinned people? These are the Negroes. Not Africans. Negroes. Woolly haired people from Europe. That's that. None more, none less. Right? None more, none less. Oh, y'all ain't even see it. Damn it. Sorry. Let me show y'all something. Oops. These are the Negroes. Sorry, y'all. I'm so sorry, y'all. These European, black Europeans. Right? Like I said, I'm going to have to show you everything again. Darker skinned Europeans. Right? You want the book, you could go become a member of the Copper Color community, man. Or you could just get it this way. Google this. But these are the Negroes. I'm over here trying to get the charger in the dang computer. We don't pass out on y'all. Right? Oh, say word. Yeah, I mean, there's a chance. Yeah, gotta keep that rod. Nah, you a fool, bro. Nah, for real though. I keep it on me, man. I gotta keep that switchy on me, bro. I ain't even gonna lie. Gotta keep the button on me. I ain't even gonna cap. Gotta keep it on me, man. Yes, sir, Shawty. Be flowing. I appreciate you, Empress. Big Chief. Big Chief to the Big Empress. I appreciate you. Do you know in Aboriginal communities, right? I'm gonna put you on, my love. Women held the places of power. They were the big chiefs. The women in the societies of Aboriginals, the men did the handiwork or whatever, right? Yeah, they got their respect for being men, of course, but the women don't none move until the OG say so, until the queen say so, right? That's a fact. So remember that, Miss Nicole. Remember that. When they try to tell you otherwise, you remind them, you the real big chief. You the real big chief standing on big chief business. Big shout outs to you. Big shout outs to you. Let's continue though. So what else? Let's go back to the article, right? So let's get through this. I gotta get my hair braided. In 1903, a historian of New Jersey noted that unions between Indians and Negroes were so commonly frequent, indeed, as to have left permanent impress on many families of Negroes of the present day. Left permanent impress upon many families of Negroes of the present day. Left a permanent impress, a permanent impress, a permanent mark. Right? The intermixture took place within slavery, and the Indian slaves were gradually absorbed into the black population. What is black? Black is just a classification. That's just a label given to people. So they rounded us up and was like, all right, all you black folks, all you colored peoples, you untithable, no land owning because we took everything. We done did the worst we could do. All of you people, y'all gonna be black. And that includes you Indians as well. You little horse thieves. Right? Whenever you read in these books and you see the term horse thief, they talking about us, y'all. Because we was taking our horses back. Horses are native to America. They didn't bring them abroad. They come from America. Stay in tune for my Mound Builders episode, y'all. Go subscribe to the Morals and Money platform for creators, because I'm going live tomorrow. And we're going to finish the conversation on the Melungeon society here in America, the mixed race peoples, right? Thus proving that a lot of us Southern black folks with Southern black blood are Indians and not Africans, right? Let's continue, right? So, where we at? With the discovery, this part is crazy. With the discovery of the New World, intermixture between the Negroes and the indigenes of the West Indies began almost at once. It must be supposed that these Negroes from different parts of Africa, were already very thoroughly mixed among themselves and with the Indians of the islands and of the mainland of Brazil by the time most of them reached North America. The mingling of Negroes and Indians, of course, occurred in the first in the West Indies. All right, I'm gonna break something down for y'all. They're gonna call them all Africans, right? If there were people mixing in with each other, that means there was other groups of people who would not be considered African mixing in with other Africans, right? If you're gonna say that Africans was mixing in with themselves, that just means they're still Africans, right? On top of that bullshit, the first slaves in the West Indies wasn't even Africans. Did y'all know that? Did y'all know that? Did y'all know that? Did y'all know that the first slaves in the West Indies were not Africans? What were they? What were they, you might ask, right? What were they, you might ask? Let me answer this question for y'all, right? Let me answer this question for y'all right now. What were they, you might ask? Did y'all know that the first slaves in West Indies was not Africans? We didn't even get into this one yet. I promise y'all. We didn't even get into this one yet. Did y'all know that the first slaves in the West Indies were not Africans? They were people from Europe, goddammit. The first slaves in the West Indies were people from Europe, goddammit. Yeah. Yep, this is why we do this, bro. This is why we do this. Hold on, I'm trying to show y'all something else, right? I'm trying to show y'all something else real quick. Right, so where we at? So this is from the book Early Man in Britain. Early Man in Britain. His place in the Tartary period. Tartary period? Huh? Oh yeah, the Tartars was black too. Now this is talking about the Basque peoples of Britain. They say that they are dark in complexion, with black hair and eyes, and with a long head, right? These people are from Europe. Dark-skinned people from Europe. What else? Human remains of this kind are met with in the caves and tombs of Belgium, France, and Spain, under conditions which show that the tall race occupied these regions in the Neolithic age. And the occurrence of the two forms of skull with all intermediate varieties in chambered tombs and sculptural caves reveals the fact that the tall invader and the small dark inhabitant of France dwelt side by side in the same area. Whew. Whew. His story anyway. Yep. But yeah, man. Them dark Negroes. Right? So what else we got? Right, Jack, see, I took notes all along this one. I'm just trying to show y'all the best parts. Right? The parts there where they really talking that talk. Right? The primary purpose here is to clarify the use of terms such as mulatto and free-colored in the British North American colonies, and incidentally to shed preliminary light on the relations between Black Africans and Native Americans. And elsewhere, I will use the term American for Indians in the colonial, and African rather than Negro for presumably unmixed sub-Saharan Africans. English writers began using the term mulatto, mulatto, or mulatto, right? 3 different spellings. In the 1590s, the term was borrowed from the Spanish and usually referred to persons met with in the Caribbean or South America. Early Spanish definitions of the term make it highly probable, indeed virtually certain, that such persons were usually half African and half American. Don Minshew has, as already noted, defined mulatto in 1599 and 1617 later as a person who was the child of a Moro, a blackamoor, and a one from another nation. The blackamoors were from Europe, right? They were from Europe. So there was a person of a mixed European ancestry and one from another nation, thus referring to the Aboriginal people. Right? That's what the term they say in mulatto is aboriginally defined as from 1599. A blackamoor and an Indian. right? 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 Look, John Filario, 1611, does not include mulatto in his dictionary, but has a mulatto, a little or young mule, a mulo, a horse mule, also a bastard or misbegot. Henry Cockram, 1623, does not have mulatto, but has a blackamoor, a Ethiop, a Ethiop, a Ethiop. A mulatto is one whose father is a blackamoor and his mother is of another nation. What other nation? Injun. Injun. Right? Two black copper colored people. Same thing. Same thing. Right? It should be noted that this nicely coincides with Virginia's legal definition of 1705 that a European American mixed blood is a mulatto. American being the Aborigine, European being the blackamoor. See how they play with the terms though. From 1658 to 1705, we starting in 1599 with the term mulatto, and in 1705 it has a whole different meaning. They try to change it though, because now a blackamoor is not a blackamoor no more, because it's not the Spanish in control. It's these whitewashing racist Europeans, colonial Americans, George Washington, those blackamoors too, because they were copper colored too. Abe Lincoln, the Melungeon, right? So what they say, we also note that the term Negro replaces blackamoor. I just showed y'all these blackamoors in the European coats of arms. The blackamoor. A Negro, you're a blackamoor. Swarthy European. Come on, stop lying. Y'all niggas be lying, bro. Stop lying. That's it. The jig is up. Somebody drop the jig is up in the comments for me so I can pin it. Please, I'm begging you. Drop the jig is up for me so I can pin it. I just want to pin it. The jig is up. Drop it in the comments. I'm waiting. I'm not going to continue. Somebody just please just drop it in the comments. The jig is up. The jig is up. The jig is up. I don't see it. Oh man, y'all ain't showing me no love. It's all right. It's all right. There we go. There we go. Nah, that's a fact. Yeah, the jig is up. The jig is up, man. The jig is up. You done got your ass. Put him in a bag. Body bag. It's a body bag. Put him in a body bag, man. You're a blackamoor, Swarthy European, in the Aboriginal mix. So they telling me, right, when I look back at that picture of my family, you telling me the Deloach. Right, the Deloach. If you wasn't tuned in, just make sure you tune in, right? Catch this. You telling me that the Deloach, right? That's a blackamoor, and this is a Swarthy European because they're labeled mulatto. They label mulatto. That's what they telling me, right? That's what they telling me. We gonna go back to it. I'm gonna go back to it for y'all, right? That's what they telling me. Hold on, y'all. Right? Because we gotta stay on track. Oops. That's what they telling me. He's a blackamoor. Indian mix. Proof is in the pudding. right? The proof is in the pudding. So let's continue. So let's find some more. Right. Oh, whew, check this out. So the term Negro replaces blackamoor, right? This is 1705. In 1727 to 1741, it states that mulatto is a name given to those who are begotten by a Negro man. A Negro is a blackamoor. A blackamoor is a mulatto. Who is the European? The Swarthy European, the blackamoor, the Ethiop. So, in 1727, a mulatto is classified as a person who is begotten by a Negro man on an Indian woman. What did I just show y'all? Hold up. So you gotta pay attention, y'all. Sipe the Loach. Negro man, Indian woman, mulatto. The jig is up. The jig is up. How else can I cook them up this much, right? How else can I cook y'all? How else more can I cook y'all up, right? A mulatto is a person who's a Moor, a native of Mauritania in Africa, or North or Europe, you know, France, the blackamoors, you know, the Moors of Europe, those people, yeah. Not an African. At this time, Moors are not Africans, right? Let's remember, they are not considered Africans, right? What else? What else? And then they start saying after the 1950s, the half black, half white usage becomes more dominant and replaces the half black, the half African, the half Ethiop blackamoor, half Indian. So now you only have black and white after 1750. Now, a mulatto is a person who can be considered either white, a European white person, and African mix. That's it. That's a mulatto. That's it. Just a black and white mix. That's it. But it's much deeper than that. Like I just showed y'all. This is the greatest lie they have ever told. The greatest lie they can never tell us. That's the greatest lie they can ever tell us, man. And this is why I want y'all to like, comment, and subscribe, man, to the Copper Color King YouTube channel. Like, comment, and subscribe to the Morals and Money platform for creators, right? Get in tune, man. Get in tune. Get in tune. We really go up, and you get more content like this if you just go subscribe to my platforms, right? I got one more thing to end this off with, right? One more thing, and I'm gonna play this video for y'all. Just give it a listen to what they gotta say, and they're gonna give y'all some fire. They're gonna let y'all know what it is, and I'm gonna step off for a little while. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Like I said, make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. And check it out.
We always consider ourselves the people of the sun, the first people. Narragansett originally, as far as in the Algonquin, it's an Algonquin word. It's the people of the point, of the people of near the little waters, which means of all the bays and the inlets. It is also another word for the people of the rising sun, or those who first see the sun, which means that we're originally from the east. The Algonquin word has many different meanings, and if you break it up, you can find water, you can find sun, you can find points, you can find inlets. Those are all definitions because one word has many different meanings.
For millennia, the Narragansett people lived along the coast of what is now southern Rhode Island. They were the most powerful tribe in the area, ruling over several neighboring tribes in southern New England and New York. But 300 years ago, English settlers nearly destroyed Narragansett civilization. This story is seldom told, but the Narragansett know it well. It is believed that the ancestors of the Narragansett migrated to present-day New England more than 10,000 years ago. They settled along the shores, river valleys, and forests of what is now Rhode Island and grew into a prosperous tribe. By the time the Europeans arrived in the area in the 16th century, the total population of the Narragansett was between 30 and 40,000. The Narragansett lived close to nature in an area rich in food resources. Most of the farming was handled by women, while the men hunted and fished.
The basic way of life for the Narragansetts was primarily a subsistence way of life. The food that they got, that was obtained primarily, was from the ocean. And this was done not only in the summer, but in the winter as well. They also were very familiar with all the different plants and animals that were in and around the shore.
Families erected bark-covered houses called wigwams near their fields and constructed watch houses to keep hungry birds from destroying their crops. The Narragansett were able to build up a food surplus by storing dried crops in baskets for later use.
Each family had to provide for themselves everything. They had to provide for themselves the means of farming, which meant their food supply, not only for summer but for winter. They had to supply for themselves their clothing. They had to make their clothing. Also, it wasn't a corner store you could go to. And if your ability to work with those things that were pretty or that were wearable or that were attractive to the eye had reached a certain level, then these could become trade items.
During the winter, groups of Narragansett families would move to warm longhouses in more sheltered areas, where they hunted and ice fished.
Naturally, as the winter became harsher and became colder, they moved inland, not only for their health and protection as far as from the elements, but also they knew that most of the animals would go in further into the forest, so that therefore that they would be using, the deer, the skunk, many of the four-legged friends that would help nourish their bodies.
Life was competitive, but you were competitive unto yourself to do the best that you could do for your creator or for the creator, since we only knew one. It is also written in the history books that the Narragansett had many. They did not. They had one.
Narragansett leaders were called sachems. Most sachems were men, though some were women. The sachems came from royal families in which power usually passed from father to son. Some sachems ruled over small local areas, but others had vast domains, sometimes including other tribes. But the sachems were not dictators. The decisions of the sachems were first reviewed by a council, who had to reach an agreement before the decision could be passed. People dissatisfied with the rule of their sachems were free to leave for new territory. Healers, called powwows, performed harvest and winter rituals, communicated with the spirits, and healed the sick and injured. Like the sachems, most healers were men, but some were women.
In my capacity as medicine woman, I am to give as much knowledge as I have relative to traditional treatments. There are many of us who are allergic to all man-made and synthesized forms of modern drugs. So it's necessary to talk about traditional medicines. There is also the other part of traditional medicine that goes hand in hand, and that's the psychological aspect, where you have to be willing to listen to people, sometimes hours on end, to be on call 24 hours a day, because there are those people who want a little ceremony or a little bit of the ancient tradition to go with the modern medicine. Whether it's to make food that is more palatable and healthier for the senior citizens, or to prescribe something to a young mother and how she can help herself be healthier to give nourishment to her child.
Narragansett were a patrilineal society. When a woman married, she moved in with her husband's family. Several generations usually lived together in one dwelling. Narragansett parents were loving and permissive. They taught their children all the necessary skills, but did not rely on physical punishment.
In many cases, you'll find that it's from the views of other people, Narragansett Indian children may be considered spoiled or sheltered. Unfortunately, that is not so. It's just that there is such a degree of respect for life that the parents envelop their children with that sort of a love and that sort of a kindness. It's a family thing. It's from generation to generation. It's extended from family to family, or from one family to the next as families go. It's a natural course for us to be that way.
When Italian navigator Giovanni da Verrazzano encountered the Narragansett in 1524, he was impressed by what he saw.
These people are the most beautiful and have the most civil customs that we have found on this voyage. They are taller than we are. They are a bronze color. Their hair is long and black, and their manner is sweet and gentle, very much like the manner of the ancients. When we traveled into the interior, we found it as pleasant as I can possibly describe, and suitable for every kind of cultivation, grain, wine, or oil.
By the early 1600s, Dutch, French, and English traders had begun to arrive in the area in large numbers. The Narragansett quickly entered into trade relations with the Europeans, exchanging animal furs for manufactured goods from Europe. They replaced their stone tools with metal ones and traded some of their newly acquired goods for profit with Indians living further inland. But the material benefits of trade with the Europeans came with a heavy price. As contact with the Europeans increased, a new array of diseases previously unknown in the New World, such as plague, smallpox, and tuberculosis, began to spread quickly through the native population.
When the Europeans came, the Narragansetts, so the Native Americans, did not have any resistance to those particular types of diseases. Because they did not have any immune system, they were totally, so in many cases, hundreds of people were basically demised. They became ill. They were not able to ward off, although they tried with a lot of their own, with the medicine men, with a lot of their spiritual leaders, sometimes that they would just remove themselves from the tribe, hoping that they could sustain themselves. Many thousands of our people died that way.
In 1636, a Puritan minister named Roger Williams led the first English settlers into Narragansett country. Williams had been expelled from the Massachusetts Bay Colony for what were considered radical ideas, like the separation of church and state. He and his fellow settlers erected homes along the Providence and Moshassuck rivers, hoping to set up an ideal society free of old world corruption. In 1643, Williams contributed to present-day knowledge of the Narragansett by publishing a book about their language, religion, and lifestyle, entitled A Key into the Language of America. It is one of the earliest and most important books about Native American people, and one of the most prophetic. Over the course of their trading activities with the Europeans in the 17th century, native hunters began to deplete the supply of fur-bearing animals in the area. At the same time, the native demand for European tools and goods kept rising. As a result, the Narragansett and nearby tribes fell into debt and began feuding among themselves for trading privileges with their new neighbors.
Basically, it's the old European philosophy, divide and conquer. Even though the Indian people themselves as a whole had gotten along with relatively, and they did have friendly competition, it wasn't until they were claiming different lands, different areas, so that many of the tribes became antagonistic.
To reduce their growing trade deficit, the Narragansett were forced to sell the northern half of Rhode Island and most of the islands of Narragansett Bay. In less than 25 years, the Narragansett lost most of their once vast territory and now found themselves surrounded by English settlements or hostile native tribes. In the summer of 1675, the nearby Wampanoag tribe got caught up in a violent struggle with the English colonies. Wampanoag refugees, led by the chief the colonists called King Philip, fled to Narragansett territory. The colonists demanded that the Narragansett hand over King Philip's refugees. When they refused, the Massachusetts and Connecticut colonies declared war on the tribe. In December of 1675, the Narragansett people retreated to what they thought was a safe haven hidden within their homeland.
As they came down through Kingston, they had entered this side of what they called the Warden's Pond. And again, they went deeper into the swamp, past the sandbogs or the quicksand bogs into the areas. Now, inside, there was a fortress, but primarily of cedar. And by the way, some of those metal pellets are still there. Some of the old guns are still there, rusted beyond, but you can tell what they were. They had basically barricaded themselves in, so they felt relatively safe, and they had enough food and storage to last for the time that they felt that they could.
But English officials had discovered their location and immediately dispatched 1,000 colonial troops to the frozen swamp where they hid.
This place where I'm sitting at is an example of how history can be written in two different ways by those who win and those who lose. In 1675, the wintertime, December the 19th, the combined forces of Plymouth, Massachusetts, and Connecticut colonies rallied together to finally defeat the Narragansett Indian tribe. It's considered in the history books, it was written as the Great Swamp Fight. To the Narragansett people, however, it's a completely different story. Indeed, in 1675, between 600 and 800 people were killed here in the Great Swamp. However, it was not a fight. The people in camp were women, old men, and children who were not fighting. They were massacred. They were shot at as they ran away from the burning wigwams in their burning village. Their food supplies for the winter were destroyed. The colonists who knew that women and children stayed in the villages while the men fought knew perfectly well that they were not fighting warriors, but they were killing people. They were killing children and women and non-fighters in the whole battle. The state of Rhode Island continues to refer to this place as the Great Swamp Fight. We continue to refer to it 320 years later as the Great Swamp Massacre.
A year of fighting followed the massacre. When it was over, less than 200 Narragansett survived. Over the course of 40 years, the English had managed to claim the entire Narragansett territory, and in 1 year, they had wiped out 95% of the population.
The outcome of the actual war to the Narragansett people itself really was the beginning rather than the end. It was the beginning because at that point they learned that they could no longer trust many of the whites or those that came into land. It was the beginning because they had to reestablish themselves. They basically, what one would term today as basically go underground, although history books state it was the ending. And because it was the beginning, we're still here.
After the war, the few surviving Narragansett merged with the Niantic tribe and established a Narragansett reservation in 1709. Over the course of the 18th century, the Narragansett lost most of this land as they labored to pay off debts. But even as they began to adopt non-native customs, they always found ways to hang on to their own traditions. Many of them converted to a form of Christianity patterned after Narragansett ways of worship. And in 1750, they built a structure called the Narragansett Indian Church, which doubled as a tribal gathering place.
A main reason for having the Narragansett Indian Church was because years and years ago, it was a meeting house. And there again, at this meeting house, it was where the Indians could meet, where the women will sing their church songs. But you see, while the women were singing, the old rugged cross or whatever, that the men were still having their meetings, and they were still holding their council meetings down by the council rocks, still maintaining some of their ways.
In the late 1700s, the Narragansett abandoned rule by their sachems in favor of an elected governor and council. By this time, most Narragansett were working as farmers or working-class laborers. In the late 1800s, the U.S. adopted a new policy toward the native population. Reservation lands were to be divided into small family-owned units. This policy, called allotment, would end the communal ownership of land traditional to the native way of life. In 1879, the state of Rhode Island used this policy to force the Narragansett to sell off their remaining land, after which the Narragansett ceased to exist as an official tribe under Rhode Island law. But the Narragansett people did manage to keep their church and continued to hold traditional gatherings. In the 1930s, the allotment policy was replaced by more progressive policies under the Roosevelt administration. These policies helped the Narragansett to reorganize as a tribe in 1934. 2 years later, a Narragansett hero appeared. His name was Ellison Brown, more popularly known as Tarzan Brown. In 1936, at age 22, Tarzan Brown became the youngest person to win the Boston Marathon. Later that same year, he became the only man to run and win 2 26-mile marathons on consecutive days. In 1939, he won the Boston Marathon again, prompting many to call him the greatest long-distance runner in the world. While he never again attained the heights he'd reached in the 30s, Tarzan Brown remains an important figure for modern Narragansett. By the late 60s and 70s, civil rights and ethnic identity became major public issues in America, and Native Americans, including the Narragansett, became more vocal in demanding their rights. Recently, the Narragansett have won several victories in Rhode Island courts. In 1978, they reclaimed 1,800 acres in the heart of their homeland. In 1983, they were officially recognized as a tribe by the U.S. government. And in 1985, despite strong opposition from the town of Charlestown, the Narragansett had their 1,800 acres of land declared a reservation, making it eligible for federal funding and exempt from property taxes. Today, the core population of Narragansett around the Charlestown area is about 300. The vast majority live like their non-Indian neighbors. A major challenge for the modern Narragansett people is finding a balance between their mainstream lives and their traditional beliefs.
When some of our young people go to school, they have a lot of their family and traditional values that they keep in place. And sometimes a lot of the school officials or other children may not understand it. But I think a lot of our young people right now are learning to deal with both the traditional values and the contemporary values. When they go into the school system, I think now they're becoming a little bit more assertive as far as explaining to the teacher, explaining to the administrator, or explaining to other youth why they don't do certain things. And not to be ashamed of it, because we're maybe different, have different values than different people, doesn't mean that it's wrong.
I attended school until 4th grade, the public school there, and discovered, well, I can't even say discovered, but it was about when I was 10 years old that I realized that I could not stay in that community. The hostility, the ignorance, the animosity that was there in that community against anyone who was not a white swamp Yankee was just too much.
A lot of them now are starting to go to college full time, starting to be more assertive, sharing our traditional value with people so people don't assume things about us. It's a challenge still, but I think a lot of the young people are adapting to it.
when I went to college, I met a lot of other Native people from across the country, and some of them have become, my very, very close friends. And I enjoyed that because I learned more about other Native people and other cultures.
I've always been taught that my heritage, my culture, my Indianness comes first. But by the same token, I'm supposed to reap the benefits of modern European society, take the best from both worlds and walk in that balance. And there's times, when I was younger, I found it really hard because I'd go to school and I'd want to have everything that my peers had and be like, not be like them, but do the things that they did. And because of financial restrictions or because of regional restrictions, or whatever, it was impossible. And then as I got older, my purpose and I guess why I'm me became more clear to me. And I've learned to walk in that balance.
Many people are working hard to help Narragansett children overcome the low self-esteem caused by the negative images of Native Americans in mainstream culture.
The idea is to get these kids interested in careers in science and engineering. And the key idea is that you can work as a scientist or engineer and still be Native American. If you look at the total number of Native Americans involved in science and engineering at professional levels in this country, and relate that to the total population, it's extremely small. Just isn't anyone. There's no role models to speak of, and there's many people just aren't aware that there's a career. They're finding out that scientists and engineers are real people, that they're fun to work with, and the stuff that they do, that it's I guess they're amazed that you can get paid for having fun, and that work isn't something that's drudgery that you have to go off and do every day. That it's something you look forward to do, and that's the kind of stuff that we're trying to get across. And what we're seeing now is students. I'll give you an example. A student who I know never really went to school very much. Last summer, he missed the bus. He hitchhiked to get to the camp. It's about 15 miles. We were a little upset that he hitchhiked, but and then we had. Remember one of the uncles of one of the students last summer said that's the first time that his nephew ever wanted to go to school.
With their recent legal victories in the Rhode Island courtrooms, the Narragansett have become an increasingly important political presence in their traditional homeland.
I've found since coming to Rhode Island, becoming state archaeologist in 1982, that the strongest advocate for the preservation of archaeological sites dealing with Native American history is the Narragansett Indian tribe. Some people, non-Indians in particular, tend to think of archaeological sites dealing with Native Americans as sort of curiosities, things that are interesting but maybe not really important, things that are frivolous to study, things that are on the periphery of real history, a white man's history. But in working with tribal members, what it does is instill a real strong importance into these things. This office is housed in the what used to be the Colony House, and then when Rhode Island became a state after the Revolutionary War, it became one of the state houses in Rhode Island. And in 1880, the General Assembly met here to formally detribalize the Narragansett Indian tribe. The federal government has since determined, prodded by a lawsuit from the Narragansetts, that was an illegal act. And tribal status was conferred on the Narragansetts formally by the federal government in 1983. And it is somewhat ironic that a group of us, the Historical Preservation Commission, and a state of Rhode Island, which now seeks to protect the archaeological sites associated with the history of these people, is in this building. And what happened within these walls 100 years ago is very different from what's happening within these walls now.
For the Narragansett, protecting archaeological sites from development means more than the preservation of Native history. It's an expression of a deeply held belief, shared by virtually all Native American societies, in the sacredness of the land.
If you build your house on the edge of water and your cesspool and your storage run into the water, or into the ground that surrounds the water, that's defiling those things. And that is one of the things that we Indians object to greatly.
It owns you for sure. Mother Earth definitely owns you, but you certainly don't own it. you can't possibly own it. And that's why you have to be kind to it and nice to it.
Most of the time now, the children, they sit in front of the TV. They see the animals on TV and they see some of these things, but they should really take a walk out in the woods and really see the leaves and the twigs and even the spiders and the snakes and the salamanders and the turtles down by the pond and the fish, and really get to touch and feel and see some of these things. Television is nice, don't get me wrong, but when you don't really live with this and see it for yourself, it's kind of imaginary. Why not encompass everything that's out there? I mean, the lowliest, like as I said, from that ant's nest on the ground, you know, to the birds, to the trees that you sit under, to the wind that's blowing. Use this, enjoy it. To me, this is life. I mean, this is loving. I mean, and don't destroy anything unless it's really for your survival.
Every August, the Narragansett people gather to remember their past and renew their traditions.
I would have been about a month old at my first August meeting, and I've been at every one since. The differences, when I was younger, I could run around or help a little bit and then run away. But as I've gotten older, I've been given more responsibility as to what I'm going to do.
When I was little, I still put my Indian dress on. My mother gave me a little dress and with beads and I still, at the time, I didn't know what we were doing, but I still did my dances with the people, with my Indian people, and I had fun. And when I was getting older, I understood the more I wore it.
For the Narragansett, there will always be a connection between the past, the land, and Native traditions. The Narragansett and others are working hard to keep those connections strong.
What I've done in my work, I've made a conscious effort to not separate the past and the present. That when I write about Narragansett Indian history 2,000 years ago, I always connect it to the people that are alive now and follow that thread through. Now that thread, that course that connects the past and the present is a pretty crazy trail sometimes, and a lot happened between 2,000 years ago and now. But the fact remains that they're the same people and they're connected by that history. And I think that as archaeologists and as historians of Native Americans, scholars of Native American history, we have a responsibility to make that connection clear.
What's in the book's not necessarily so. Let's get the true history and put it down. And then I think from there, when people start reading true history of what actually happened to Native Americans, then maybe they'll get a better understanding. I mean, a lot of times when you read a history book, it's like Indians were savages and all they did was kill settlers. And so you get a very negative view on Native Americans, or you get a very romanticized view on Native Americans. We just want a real realistic view of what we really are as a people, whether the things that we do are good or bad, but let's make sure that it's true.
We know who we are, we know our history, our culture, and we have maintained it, and we will continue to do that. We came from the sea, and we reside by the sun. That is us, the Narragansetts.
We breaking that black barrier every single day, every weekend, 24/7. It does not matter.
Tell them what breaking the black barrier mean, man. What they look like?
What is black, man?
What is black?
Copper Color Productions, man. The Copper Color King Cash Moles and Money, man. Let's get it.
Black King, stand up. But understand what black is. It's the essence, it's the culture. We've been on this earth, you heard? The Bronx was called Fort Apache. The Bronx was called Fort Apache, man. Oh, last breed, bro. We bringing it back, last breed.
Really forever flying in this bitch, man. For the ancestors.
baby.